Hello and welcome back. So today we're going to talk about the next My Hero Academia chapter 226. Now, what's really interesting about this chapter is not only that it concluded her fight with Kizuki, but we also got a lot more information about Toga as a character, about her history, and even her quirk, because what we got on her quirk is extremely relevant and extremely impactful on her character, which I'm going to get into. But first I want to talk about her flashback a little bit, or rather her backstory, because we saw how obviously she had apparently stabbed her first victim in school when she was younger, which is probably, or let's just say obviously, because it is definitely that guy who looked like Deku, and we see how she is sucking his blood while he's on the ground, probably unconscious. So that really sparked her new persona, I guess, in the sense that she became a serial killer in that way. I mean, before that happened, we saw some other parts of her backstory when she was even younger, when we saw how she found dead animals like a bird. I think she even started to fucking sucking the blood out of a dead bird as a very young girl, which really should give you a lot of indication what her personality is like. And when we found out about her quirk through the doctor, probably, I mean, we don't see his face, but we definitely see that someone is telling her about her quirk, and he mentions that she has a very irrational admiration for blood. I mean, like the doctor says, you know, it's fine to be feeling admiration for stuff like people and all that kind of stuff, but you can't really make admiration for blood something that society is going to accept. So it is definitely something that, well, she kind of needs to hide or whatever, you know. She has to kind of overcome that, and that alone, like that part alone, is something that I want to get into later. But right now I kind of want to talk about just the backstory in general, because we saw how even her parents started to kind of reject her, because they don't say to her face to face, but they mention that they don't really know what to do with her, you know, she's a devil's child or whatever, which kind of tells me a lot about how her parents react when Toga starts to grow into this new psychotic little girl, you know, when her quirk is becoming more active, so to speak, and she just wants more blood all the time. You know, she even, like I said, she picks up this bird and she starts sucking its blood, and she even goes to show her parents how cute this dead bird is. You know, your average parent definitely would not find that cute, and they don't. I mean, Toga definitely is like the odd one, even in her family, which is quite interesting. So I'm wondering if her quirk is like a mutation outside of her family, like they don't really seem to have quirks that are even remotely similar, at least not in the sense that it affects their personality. They may be blood related, but it doesn't really seem to affect them as people. So what I found be interesting about the whole thing, like I said, with Toga having this rational sense of wanting to admire blood, you know, she has this love for blood, as we've seen on multiple occasions in My Hero Academia. Like whenever she sees someone who's bloody or just roughened up, you know, kind of like Deku and Stain, she falls in love with them because of how damaged they are physically. Like, he is drawn to that kind of stuff, and that kind of tells me, like, what if she doesn't actually want this to be the case? Like, what if she wants to be a normal girl, which is actually implied later on in the chapter. But I want to go back to when she was sucking the blood of her first victim, because she actually cries at the same time as she's creepingly smiling as she sucks his blood, and that is fucking crazy to think about. Like, if she's crying at the same time, that obviously means that she didn't really want to do it, but her, I guess, addiction or her craving for blood just drove her to insanity, to the point where she just had to stab him and she had to suck his blood because her quirk willed it. And that's absolutely insane to think about. Like, if her quirk has that much of an influence on her as a person, like, that just explains why Toga became the way she is, and we finally find that out. Like, that is exactly why Toga is such a psychopath, because her quirk drives her to the point where she needs to taste people's blood. She needs to drink blood, or whatever she has to do with the blood, you know. It's just something that is natural to Toga because of her quirk. Like, without that quirk, that mechanism wouldn't be there, and she would probably be a normal functioning girl that society would accept. So I wonder at some point in the future if that's gonna become relevant as well, in the sense that Toga may want to become a normal person, because we know that Shigaraki, he wants to mass produce the quirk erasing bullets. And what if Toga becomes part of that plotline in some way? What if she actually becomes relevant in regards to these quirk raising bullets? What if she wants to get rid of her quirk at some point in the future? Because she mentions towards the end of the chapter, when it came to the whole thing with Ochako, that she wants to be exactly like Ochako. She even goes crazy about how she wants to be like Ochako to the point when the whole quirk thing happened, which I'm going to get into as well. But that just tells me that Toga may actually have some serious character progression and development throughout the series runtime that isn't even to do with her fighting for the league, but rather her trying to figure out herself. And that is something that I'm looking forward to, if that happens. I mean, we don't really know if it's gonna take that kind of route, but I kind of hope it does, because that is something that would really add to her character. If her quirk is kind of like controlling the way she behaves and acts, but without that quirk she may actually not be that bad. I mean, it wouldn't erase her sins or her crimes, but it would definitely mean that she wouldn't have to cause any more trouble in the future. Of course, that's obviously going to be something that happens a lot later on in the series, if it happens at all, but it is something that I would be really curious to see. So let's talk about Toga versus Kizuki, because Kizuki took an L in this chapter. She took a major loss. I mean, earlier in the chapter it looked like Kizuki was actually going to win, because we saw Toga about to be dead. I mean, for a moment I actually thought Toga was dead, because she looked very dead after Kizuki actually smashed her face in with whatever the fuck that was she used. But nah, she was alive, just barely, right? And well, I mean, I say barely, she kind of went up kind of normally, to be honest, so I'm not sure if it was like that barely, to be honest, but you know what I mean. I feel like Toga's survival instinct really was driving her at the end there though, because it really looked like Toga was about to just pass out, but you know, her will to survive just kind of brought her to go back up again and activate Ochako's blood, which actually turned into something a lot more than just her blood. Turned out that she could actually copy Ochako's quirk as well, which led to Kizuki's death. I mean, we think she's dead. I mean, she doesn't have to be dead, but looking at the panels where Kizuki actually fell down on the ground from that height, I mean, I don't think she's alive. I'm just gonna be honest, especially given what Toga said at the end of the chapter, where she said she's not actually supposed to be killing them because Gargantomacha is going to arrive, but she had no choice. So that kind of tells me that Kizuki is in fact dead. She's not alive at all. I mean, you can just imagine like falling from that kind of height and you hear that splashing sound looking down at the panel, like she's just talking to herself, and you know, her line is cut off as you see this splash effect on the speech bubble, which kind of implies that something really bad happened to her, right? She's either dead or she's just at the very brink of death, like she's just about to be dead. She might be alive, but I'm not going to count on it, especially given that Toga seemingly wanted to kill her like really badly. I mean, she doesn't really seem like she hesitated to kill her. She just knew she wasn't supposed to kill her, but she did it anyway. I mean, it's a shame really, because Kizuki was a fucking prime waifu, right? Like, she was state-of-the-art waifu material, and I'm really sad if she's dead, because I wanted to see more of her. Like, if she returns, great and all, but like at the same time I kind of hope she's dead, because I just needed Toga to get that W. And obviously, even if she's alive, she still took the W, but at the end of the day, if she killed Kizuki, that's gonna really just put her on a much higher pedestal to me. So let's talk about her copying Ochako's quirk, because that is something that became quite a controversial topic on some ends of the internet, at least. Like, me personally, I find it to be a really good thing, because it really elevates her quirk, especially if she's going to keep up with the rest of the League of Villains, because you have Dabi, Shigaraki, you know, all these kind of people who could probably outshine her very significantly. So she kind of needed an upgrade, in my opinion. It didn't really have to be through her quirk. It could have just been through skill, of course. Like, it didn't really have to have anything to do with her advancing her quirk to the next level, but that's seemingly what we got. I mean, it is obviously something that has been planned for a long time. I saw an image on Twitter where we saw a prototype. Well, I didn't see the prototype design myself, but part of the wiki says that her prototype design included her being able to copy quirks. Although that hasn't really been in the series up until this point, it is definitely something that Horikoshi has had in mind, even though he hasn't really implemented it yet. It was in the Once Justice game as well, but I don't really think that's anything to go off of, because games aren't really that accurate, let's be honest. But the fact that it was in her prototype design in the early stages of the series, before she was properly introduced as a character, that is something that I found to be really cool. That, you know, it could have been planned all along. He could have just had it in mind, and very recently he decided to bring it back into the series rather than actually keeping it out, because he may have changed up some plans, you know, for her character and for some other characters, and she needed to kind of keep up with everyone else, of course. You know, who knows? But something happened happened for sure. Now, the way she was able to copy the quirk was obviously fucking brilliant. She had to see Ochako use her quirk in order for her to know how to activate it, which implies that she needs to know exactly how to activate a quirk if she's going to activate it. And my guess is that it's going to be limited to emitter type quirks because those seem to have more of an activation process, if you know what I mean. Like Ochako has to use this hand gesture, as you see her do multiple times in the series, and Toga copied that, made Kizuki and everyone fly up into the air, and you know, whenever she decided to drop them, well, we know what happened after that. So my guess is obviously that it's limited to emitter types, and I saw some discussions on Discord as well. So they said that they hope that if she's gonna use someone else's quirk while being transformed as them, it should expend a lot more blood, meaning that the duration she can be that person should be significantly decreased if she also decides to activate a quirk while in that person's appearance, which I actually agree with. I think that would be a great way to further limit her power, because if she doesn't do that, then she could probably be extremely overpowered if she's utilized in a very aggressive manner. Like imagine if she copies someone like Shigaraki or someone like, I don't know, let's say Todoroki. Like if she doesn't have to expend a lot more blood while being transformed as them, then she would be extremely strong, because those quirks are deadly and just overall dangerous to use, especially in the hands of a psychopath. I mean, the only reason why Todoroki's quirk doesn't really seem that dangerous when he's using it is because he is a hero. He doesn't really try to kill anyone, but Toga, she definitely would try to kill a lot of people. Anyway, I'm gonna end the review here, so I would like to know what you think down below in the comments about this chapter, especially about the whole revelation with Toga being able to copy other people's quirks, probably with some kind of limitations in my opinion. Like I definitely think there are limitations, even if they haven't been stated yet, but if there aren't any, well, I wouldn't hate it, but I would definitely not like it as much. I would prefer it if there is a way to stop Toga from becoming ridiculously overpowered through other people's abilities. I definitely think like Toga's focus should be with her own skill set. Using anyone else's quirk should just be kind of like temporary boosts or situational ways of getting herself out of a pinch, kind of like in this chapter where she had to use it in order to survive. Her survival instinct just kind of kicked in, and you know the rest. Anyway, let me know down below, and as always, if you did, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. This has been Chaotic Plus, and remember, Toga is waifu, Toga is laifu.